first order of business will be adoption of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated?
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda.
Second,
Second.
any changes or additions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda has been approved. Presentations by residents. Anyone in the room who wish to make a presentation, please step to the microphone. It's just here. Yeah. Okay, just pull the microphone down and remind us of your name and address for the record.
My name is Everett Shopmaker. I live at 47 Argyle. In Garrett Park. And mostly with regard to the intersection of Kennel Road and Park House, it seems like a pointless change. It's got quite a bit of money. It comes under the category if it's not broke, it'll fix it. It's not broken. And yes, I want to fix it. My own concern is getting my car into my driveway. Since the car is an electric car, I need to back it in or to charge it. I think I'll be able to do it, but it's not going to be as easy as it is now. So, but, you know, if you're determined to do this, and I think spend pointless, unnecessary money, go ahead. Could you stay at the microphone a moment, please? Last Tuesday, I was out there with our consulting engineer, Jason Azar. And you came out and we looked around a bit. Yeah.
At the moment, your driveway opens onto an intersection of two streets.
Right.
If we approve the remaining portion of this bid package, your driveway will be reconfigured to open onto only one street. Yes. Are you comfortable with at least that aspect of this? It should be an improvement. Safety improvement in the long run. I understand that. That's beyond the apron. But the apron will now open on only onto Kenilworth. Is that correct? Okay. And to the extent of that change, does it make you feel more comfortable in terms of?
No, not particularly. I don't think they do.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anything from the council? All right. Any further presentations from residents?
Go online or people here or anywhere.
Okay, it looks like we have a raised hand from.
What? This is the first one. Yes, yes, it was.
I can't read. Who is it?
There was no raised hand.
Oh, it wasn't raised.
No, that was Max. A raised hand would be
All right.
yellow and would stay. Right.
Any further presentations from residents in the room?
Todd Delturi, 4709 Argyle Avenue. Thanks for allowing us to speak. I got a couple thoughts. Overall, I think the intersection can be made safer. I think the first and 90% or more of the problem is bamboo and the lack of sight when you want to take a right or seeing traffic coming from the right. So I think my overall thought is remove the bamboo and then reassess where we are after that. It's my thought. There are some positives. The town was wide enough to lower the speed limit to 20 miles an hour, which makes you know, for those who pay attention to the speed limit, which I think most people do. People approaching the intersection are not going fast. It's not like Rockville Pike. Again, on the northern side of the intersection on Kenilworth is the speed bump immediately before Argyle, which again slows people down. And it might explain why, according to the county instant traffic, data center website, there have been no incidents at that intersection at all in the last 9 years. There has been one with a bicycle in 2016 at Montrose in Argyle, but nothing at that intersection. So while again, I think it can be better, I think those variables should also go into the decision. I don't think there's a need to restrict any of the parking on Kenilworth. If anything, sometimes I think having parked cars slows people down even further. And again, that would take, I think it's not in the scope of the plan that was presented. Also, I think it would take more studying to see how parking is or isn't affected. I do take some issues with the plan as it's presented. In that going to Ed's and Caroline's driveway, the plan, I believe, it's kind of hard to read, but I think it says it would change the grade a 6% grade from Kenilworth down to their existing driveway. I measured today and it's currently at 10%. So that would mean that they would have to lengthen into their driveway. And that the LOD, the level of development line in the drawing goes around their driveway, but not past their driveway. So to me, that means that they would have to elevate their driveway above where the lawn is or their property line is, which doesn't seem very fruitful for them. Also, it would have them pulling out of the driveway at an angle facing more up than it is now. Now they kind of come out with the natural grade of the road. So now they're coming out in Kenilworth, you know, with traffic coming left or right, hopefully slowly, as we said, but their visibility is going to be a little detracted, more detracted now because they're at a higher angle according to the drawing. Also, with that degree, you're going to have water coming down from Kenilworth into their driveway with nowhere to go, whereas currently now it's swooping around the driveway. I would assume the apron would be cement. I would assume the apron would have a lip. If we have a storm like we had last night, it's going to go right over that lip. When the snow melts, we're going to get a lot of snow, but when we do, when it melts, it's going to go down the driveway and freeze at the bottom of the driveway. Because again, there's no plan to address the water issue caused by the new quarantines of the driveway. Also, the again, it's engineering drawings, and we'd like to think that they did their homework, but they have marked an inlet at the top of Argyle. When it's actually an outlet, it takes water from the top of Kenilworth, flows it under Argyle, and pushes it under Kenilworth, sorry, and pushes it down Argyle. And that's one of the reasons John King and I have water that we did last night, streaming to our front yards, because we have all the water from Kenilworth and all the water from Argyle, you know, cruising down our street. Nowhere in this plan does it say that they've taken water into consideration by moving the curve out. It might be a positive, it might be a negative, it might be neutral, but we don't know. So I don't think in good conscience, the town council should vote on the plan as it is without getting all those answered. So I think those are the majority of my thoughts. And then also, if I may ask, is this an all or nothing? Can you vote just to do the bamboo and not, or just to do the bamboo and put a stop sign up? Or not, or do you know yet?
It is largely an all or nothing vote tonight. We need to determine whether we are going to award this last element of the bid from the contractor. The bulk of that contract was awarded at the last meeting. This was reserved. It's been out there, it's been bid. We can either award it or not.
Well, it would be my suggestion that you not award it then because there are too many unanswered questions. And you also have a drawing you can barely read unless you have another copy somewhere else that we have to see it going. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Any further comments from residents? Any further presentations from residents? Tony, state your name, address.
Tony Altar, 11100 Kenilworth Avenue. It's I'm really impressed with what Todd just said. I think there's a lot of thought that went into his comments, and I think this has been the whole process, which I really commend the council for encouraging us to think about this and provide our input. I think it's a great new approach that I think is going to pay tremendous dividends. For example, identifying unintended consequences of designs, which are, I think, well intended. Kristen Altar and I sent in our comments. I'm glad you guys received it. I think in general, we've been favorable to the modifications. But again, there are some other aspects to consider. And one thing that I pointed out in the letter, I've seen on a number of occasions, maybe 4 or 5 in the 25 years we lived there, when a very large truck came up Argyle, and because it stopped, it actually started during the very icy conditions. Because it stopped, it actually started sliding back down the street. I was really frightened to see that. So putting a stop sign there on the steepest part of Argyle might actually have another unintended consequence. And someone driving in those very icy conditions, the last thing they want to do is stop. They want to sort of roll through the intersection. So that's yet another issue. Another one that came up, I don't know if it's a major one, but Ed and Carolyn's address, I didn't know that she's actually on Argyle. They have an Argyle address, so probably a minor thing if the driveway is now coming out of Kenilworth. Shouldn't, you don't define the property, but where the driveway is, but it could be a confusing thing. And then finally, I guess the point you made, Todd, was that the angle, if the angle of the top of the driveway has to be high enough to prevent water from rushing down the driveway, then the angle of the car that would be coming out of that driveway going onto Kenilworth might be actually quite steep, impeding the vision, especially looking forward. So that could be a safety issue. So again, I overall was positive about this, but maybe there are enough issues that makes us need to rethink this and put it on hold. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Couple of non-cumulative remarks. Okay.
Hi, I'm Robin Daly. I live at 11218 Kenilworth Avenue. And I speak for my husband Matthew now, who has same feelings that I do. I commend Todd for his comments about engineering. I know nothing on engineering, so won't look at any of that and think all of that makes sense, to take a good hard look to make sure that the engineering makes sense. Speaking just from the experience of driving up and down Kenilworth Avenue 4 to 8 times a day for 25 years, I will tell you that I have several times swerved to avoid an accident. The problem mostly is we've recently got so many people coming who aren't familiar with Garrett Park. We have delivery drivers, we have people who are going to the bistro and they circle up and come out that way. And there is no signage. My thinking, the simple thing would be to stick in a sign, trim back the bamboo, and that would solve the problem. The challenge is it's not really clear where the sign can go.
What would the sign say?
Yield or stop.
Yield or stop?
Yeah. From our perspective, as we drive south on Kenilworth, there are frequently 90% of the time cars parked on the right, which forces us to be in the center of the road. So when cars are coming up that hill and making a right without a turn, they're coming right into the lane that I'm driving in the center of the road. I walk there frequently with a 6-year-old. It's a challenging corner to walk around. There's no sidewalk. There's cars parked here all the time. You're in the middle of the street. So we have lots of 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds who aren't accompanied by grandparents on their bikes. And that is a dangerous corner that cars are coming around with no, I guess all of us who have driver's licenses know that we should give way, but it doesn't appear that anybody coming up that hill knows that. So that's our biggest complaint. I'm thinking like low-tech solutions would be, and I know the neighbors won't like this, so don't allow parking for a couple of spaces there in the front on the right, so people aren't pushed into the center of the road. Trim back the bamboo. Maybe
On the show walker side or the altar side of Kenilworth?
we're forced, it seems like the cars are accumulating on the west side of the road, on the altar side.
Okay,
And it's not just in front of the altar house, there are a
Right.
few houses along there. So that would be the low-tech solution. Nobody's gonna like to have no parking there. just like the Shawakers, I'm sure don't like the idea that their driveway has to be adjusted. So I'm hoping that the town council can weigh these things in, you know, find the best solution, but that's our perspective. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further presentations? Anything?
There's a couple more.
Very good.
Hi there. My name is Amy Carney and I live at 11405 Rokeby Avenue, which is all the way down in the cul-de-sac. So I have to drive from the cul-de-sac out of Garrett Park multiple times a day, probably 8 times in the course of a normal day. I have a child and while I agree that the bamboo and the sightline can be improved and stuff, but I think that overall the safety with Kenilworth cut off at Rokeby makes our traffic have to switch through those side streets, not just Argyle, but also Clyde and the one in between them. And there is not that great of clearance at either of those intersections at Kenilworth either. And I believe that if we're considering stop signs and safety, that possibly we should talk about the survey that went out about the gate at Kenilworth, which came up, which is a big concern for ours in safety, and I think that it ties into this. I wanted to.
That will be the subject of the next council meeting.
Okay,
This is a special council meeting.
just for the
Just for
Argyle.
this, yes.
What I wanted to say for the safety of Argyle, I think is a larger concern as well. I just-
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further presentations? All right. We'll move to the single action item for this evening, which is determining the final element of the award made at the last council meeting.
I'd like to ask a clarification question if I could. So my understanding is that the bamboo in front of the Showmakers property that borders on Kenilworth is in the right of way. Is that true or false? Or does anybody know? Yeah?
And it's in the right of way and
Yes.
in the property too.
Yeah, so does the town have the ability to remove the bamboo in the right of way so as to increase the visibility on that part of the road?
It's been attempted.
It's part of the,
But can it be done? Do we have the right to do it?
yes.
I know I'm not perfectly.
Just go to Mike.
We have a survey of power line that shows where the town line is on Kenilworth.
Where the lot line is?
Yeah,
Okay, and where the right of way is?
where the right of way is,
Right,
It's the lots.
right.
I'm not sure there's a difference between the right of way and lot.
The same.
But sufficient to say, the amount of right of way between Kenilworth and Ireland is rather small.
Okay,
Tell us how much more or less?
I'm not quite sure.
The survey instruments speak for themselves.
Right, but
Do you have any quarrel with the property line shown? Do you have any quarrel with the property line shown on this document?
let me see.
Sounding like Courtney, I'm sorry, you need to get this straight.
It doesn't show where the property line is. Does it?
It does. It's
Yeah,
double
it's-
dashed dot line.
It's this one. So on the Kenwood side, it's that one. You know where the utility poles are. Utility poles are never in private property, they're always in public land.
Well, I think it would be good if my survey, I don't know where this is.
Tell you what,
An actual survey going on to the survey.
if this passes tonight, we'll double check the survey marks.
Right, because we would resist spending the value on our property.
But
Well,
so that maybe you wouldn't, would you object to, cutting bamboo in the right of way?
Well, I don't think we have an interest in that. If it's the right of way, then you have the right to cut it.
But yes, I assume we would. What would your position be about that? What would you feel about it? I mean,
No, actually, looking at.
Yeah,
Kenilworth,
unfortunately, we have to capture this for the record, for better or worse.
if you're gonna look at it, right by where Kenilworth comes by. It's not that much bamboo for a yard to be. By and large, it's come down. And. Here's the map, I didn't think there was any objection much to the bamboo that you show on the maps, if you want. Just come to our ones.
I mean, basically speaking, looking at the map, it's only gonna be like maybe 6 foot wide, the width of the driveway apron, the concrete apron tapering to a point. And then it's supposed to be permanently removed and. Well,
All right. We're not gonna solve this sitting here 5 blocks away. We have surveys. We'll double check it. As shown on the plat prepared by the town's consulting engineer. The triangle of bamboo to be removed is
No,
well within the right of way.
yeah, that's the triangle that shows there to be removed, there's no big deal.
And we'll double check the property.
Okay.
Okay. So to begin. Consideration of the action item. Town manager Matthew, could you make a brief summary?
Certainly, as the town council directed at the last meeting, we did execute a contract with SFMS for everything that was included in the bid package, but for the intersection configuration. You all opted to defer action on that item to allow time for public comment. Basically, you have until June 5th to make a decision and for us to notify SFMS if you want to move forward with that work. As a reminder, the cost of the intersection modifications as included in the bid package was $14,930.63. The adopted FY 2025 budget does include funding for this work. And just wanted to note that as we've talked about before, there are some efficiencies from a financial standpoint. If this is work that you want to have done, to have it done as part of a larger contract, I'm sure that played into the price that we received. Should you decide to defer the work, but do it at some other time, I would certainly encourage you to try to bundle it with other road work because it will be less expensive.
All right. To get this matter on the table. I need to do a motion to award the remaining portion of the contract to. I'm never gonna get the contract. Did you help me?
Yeah, it's SFMS LLC.
Chris, can you take one more resident question?
I have questions. Shall I go to my question? Matthew now, you live in 218 Calhoun Avenue. To follow up on Todd's questions, the bid is not complete unless these questions are answered. Unless all of the concerns are addressed in the bid. Has the contractor been asked to come to answer, provide answers for Todd's questions?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Todd asked several questions, brought up several issues.
About the
About
driveways,
problems.
the water and.
That has been addressed.
And what,
The engineer responded. The town engineer responded because I asked that pointed question, sent him a diagram, and he said that the driveway apron, I'm reading from his thing, the driveway apron will slope up about 6 inches from the flow line along the road before it goes back down towards the driveway. This will keep water channeled in the roadway and send it down Argyle and not into the property. I do not think that a drainage structure such as trench drain or slot drain is necessary. I believe we can channel the water down Argyle and keep it out of the resident's property. And
That would be a change from this document, which shows a slope of 1 in 48, which is 1 inch over the 4 foot width of the apron.
So it's changed from what they originally bid on.
That's correct.
Okay. Is it not? My history of the contracts, doesn't it make sense to have them recorded to encompass all of the changes?
If the council is willing to go on the email assurance, that's their choice.
As far as the water drainage issues, where's the water going? And is it adequately designed to prevent it from the front parts? Is that been addressed?
well, that's what I just stated from the engineer, and the water will be the same water that currently goes down Argyle anyway, so it's not like we're adding new water.
Said he thinks it is
Right.
adequate, you think?
I do, like,
Yes.
today, the driveway now, the water comes down Kenilworth on the east side, it runs along the curb, and the driveway there is kind of flat, so there's an excess of water overflow across Shawwickers and then down into Del Prioris, down into Teals and down into Suns, and that's why the curb is put down, the concrete curb is further down the street. So what the engineer is proposing now would take all that water and keep it out in the street.
So does that address your? Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I
Wasn't your notice.
think it would have been nice if Phil had mentioned that during when I was talking, it would be nice to have open, transparent communication, but everything for that.
That's last thing you want to do is let a contract, when we have a major change in scope.
I couldn't agree more.
All right. Okay, so a motion to consider and bring to a vote the proposed modifications to the SFMS LLC contract regarding the Kenilworth Argyle intersection.
I'm sorry, you'll have to restate it. I went swimming today and my ears are still plugged up.
Yes, just, I move that we vote on the modifications, the final modifications to the Kenilworth Argyle intersection as stated in the SFMS LLC contract. Most of which was approved, but this part was not, and so we move to vote on this part of it.
It's a motion to award to SFMS this final element of the bid contract.
Sure, we can say it on it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from the council?
Could I make an amendment? And the amendment is simply that we'd like to see if we could tack on some extra money that during the process of bamboo removal, they install a bamboo barrier, and that rather than waiting until this comes up as a change order, we consider putting money up front to address that.
That might be better undertaken as a separate matter and not tack it onto this.
Okay, fair enough.
This could be a different contractor.
For
Yes.
discussion purposes, I'd appreciate it if you would go over the engineer's responses to the drainage issues and also the driveway apron, because I was not aware, I'm not sure if I understood correctly whether the 6 inches that Phil just read in the engineer's note was based on the current drawings or some modification that was being proposed. So I'd appreciate it if we could go over the engineer's additional information provided in recent days.
That would be awarded as part of the contract,
Right, I
Right.
want to make sure before we vote that we all fully understand.
what's included.
And I would like to rephrase, I was moving to a vote
but I actually would like to defer this. I don't want to vote in favor of the award.
You wanted to put it on the table for.
Yes, so I think my motion might be to, instead of to award, it might be to defer.
To vote,
To, yes, my original motion was to vote,
right?
which was interpreted by the mayor quite plausibly as to award. But I think I would retract that and just say to vote.
But we have to be voting for something.
Correct.
Either voting for awarding or denying the, saying no to the vote to award.
But the wording is important.
Right.
But what's the motion? The motion is to vote on whether to do this or not. And that's a motion to award the final element of the contract. The other portions of which you awarded 15 days ago. And it's been seconded. That gets it on the table. Okay. When the vote comes, you can vote no. Okay. All right. Or yes.
So we do have time for discussion about it, right, to clarify.
Yeah. Now,
Engineering.
now it's on the table for discussion.
You want to?
So, well, what I just read was actually part of the packet that Barb had just handed out, so,
I know, but not everybody
no,
who's listening received that packet.
right. So, I had basically asked Jason the pointed question last night of whether or not the water's gonna run into the Sharker's house, and if so, or if not, why not? And he gave me the response, which if you don't mind, I'll just read over again. He said, Phil, the driveway apron will slope up about 6 inches from the flow line along the road before it goes back down toward the driveway. This will keep the water channeled in the roadway and send it down Argyle, not into the property, period. I do not think the drainage structure such as a trench drain or slot drain is necessary, period. I believe we can channel the water down Argyle and keep it out of the resident's property.
So is your understanding that that 6 inches refers to the current drawing as was bid out?
I would have thought so, but I'm now looking at the drawing again and saying to myself, I don't understand where the 6 inches.
Detail one.
Detail one shows, and detail one could show it, and it could be. It shows a 48 to 1 max, so theoretically, it could be already in there. I'm sorry, so detail, okay.
It's only going up 1 inch and 4 feet, so he's talking about going up 6 inches and 4 feet. Now, which makes sense, because that would be the same height as the curb.
Right.
So water, it's all the same if it's 6 inches above the drain line.
Right. So they don't show an exact number on the thing. They just say tied back to the driveway. And it doesn't show that it's going to be specifically 6 inches above. Now, let me just quick stop for a second and say something. This drawing was not the one that was included originally with our stuff because somebody had cut out just a portion of the drawing. The actual bid drawing came later on in the stuff that Barb sent out. There was a full sheet with a number of different details on it. Included was detail number 1, typical driveway apron. So depending on what stuff you read, you may or may not have seen this particular detail.
And I think I see the other issue is it says ADA compliant driveway apron, which I'm not sure if it's necessary to have that or not. But that's probably what's driving that 1 inch and 48, because that's the next ADA slope. But it's very common to have an apron that slips higher than that. I guess we would need to have some confirmation from the engineer and something that goes to the contractor to make it very clear to them what's expected. What's the high back edge of that apron above the street edge?
And how it goes to the driveway, the Shalaka driveway.
Right.
Right.
I mean, basically what we need, well, for total clarification, what we should have is basically a drawing showing the Sharker driveway modifications, if any. And the an elevation view of it showing how it's going to tilt leading to the road or back towards the house.
So really a revision of this drawing is in order.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I would agree. I think we need to have that crystal clear to the contractor, what's expected there, but overall, I mean,
I agree.
it's a great improvement to what's there now. I was surprised that, the water comes down, the driveway actually slopes down a little bit, so that explains why it goes across all those properties. It's kind of inviting water in. This would keep the water out.
Explain that at all.
No, because actually the water, once it gets past that outlet, it's
Sorry?
gonna go.
Has nothing to do with the obstruction.
What driveways? I'm saying the show,
That explains why it floods the other property.
no, what yours, or your
Yeah.
yard.
That has nothing to do with this driveway, and nothing to do with our driveway.
No, the water comes in through his driveway and goes across and then down the hill.
Correct. So does the bubbler, all the rest of the water.
The bubbler goes out towards the inside of the asphalt.
Right here, but it's gonna go right down that ditch right in front of his house.
I'm sorry,
But they're showing on the new drawing, they're showing that going all the way up to the edge where the bubbler is, which would be very similar to what happens in front of the Grefsheim's house, where they have the trough that comes underneath the sidewalk, comes out in a trough that comes out into the gutter, so. I think that would solve if there's any leakage around the back of that asphalt curb. Sorry?
That they
What do you mean they weren't?
weren't going to do a trench over the impression.
It's a different, he's talking about a different kind of a trench, like one that would be in the front of the street where it would kind of collect water in that trough and then run a pipe over to where the bubbler is. That's a whole different thing, kind of like you would have at a garage door.
In other words, it was a belt and
So there's a
belt
motion now.
braces.
I would like to amend my own motion with a friendly amendment, which is regardless of whatever the outcome of the vote, that we do clear the bamboo and that we do install a stop sign.
And the issue with the stop sign is you can't put it the way that curve goes. It's such a big radius. It's really abnormal to have that big of a radius there. You can't put the stop sign 15, 20 feet to the right of where people are driving up. That was the purpose of why they're bringing that corner out and then decreasing the radius, which slows down traffic. It's a pretty common.
this is the discussion we had last November. And we adopted the principles that are expressed on this sheet, whether you saw the sheet or not. It reflects the vote of the council last November. Sure. We're not here to redesign the intersection unless we vote to reject awarding this last element as part of the contract. Correct. In which case, you go back to square one. That's right. With all of the attendant delay. Yes.
An extra cost.
So I have another question for Barb. I know you reached out to various neighbors in the area. Did you get any feedback from the residents at 11-020-028 Kenilworth, which is directly across from Argyle?
Go ons,
Yeah.
go ons.
I'm not sure who.
Oh, directly across.
It's directly across from the intersection.
Cantor.
To the altar.
Not Cantor.
Did you get any feedback?
I think the only thing they ask is whether or not, let me just double check, but I believe they just asked whether the meeting would be in a hybrid fashion. Let me see if I could find anything though. Basically, all they said is, hi Barb, thanks for reaching out to us. It's a town meeting, also accessible remotely by Zoom, for example.
Okay, thank you.
Just a clarification, Chris, which is that the two components I just mentioned are given as part of the background on the memo. So I think that those are already there.
Yes.
So those, okay, so we're not redesigning anything, we're just vote, I mean, if we vote down the award, then I'm saying we should have tried to also include these two elements, which were part of the original. We're not throwing out the whole backwater, just most of it.
No, but I think the point was made here is that you can't install a stop sign without also installing something that brings it out closer to the line of travel on the road.
I imagine we can figure that out with the engineers.
Well, we've discussed that, and I actually, about a year ago, went through this whole process. I used paint instead of a hardscape here, which ultimately the Grove Slade said it had to be, hard. Nevertheless, the point was to try and square that corner off because people were cutting really tight on that corner. And we were having problems there, and that also exacerbated issues with sight distance. So it follows the same general outline as what I had suggested, and I think everybody had agreed upon. The problem with the stop sign was there was nowhere to put it, and you'd end up kind of flat out putting it in the middle of the road. At least what we see is the road now
On Argyle.
on Argyle.
Or you put it 20 feet
Or you
downhill.
put right into the
Yeah.
bushes or, there's the only good way of doing it, regardless of what type of, even with a yield, whatever sign you put there, is you want to have it where the drivers can see it, where it makes some sense that they're going to come up far enough to be seen from the other people and see those other people.
Yeah.
And so that's why it ended up looking like this.
Tony, either come to the mic or not.
I had a question just about this. I wonder if the direction is to go ahead and move forward with this as previously discussed, the turn in the driveway does look a little bit tight on that turn to me. I'm wondering, could it be something where the engineer could be asked to kind of move the apron over like to the north a little bit and make that a wider sweep so it's easier to kind of get in and out for the Shawwickers cars.
Move it up Kenilworth and back towards Argyle.
Up Kenilworth
Okay.
further, so it just allows for like more of a gradual turn and less of a sharp, like 45, the way it is now. I wonder if that could be considered.
The contract bid for this element, $14,000 and some odd dollars, is clearly based on this sheet, C500.
Hmm.
If we deviate from this, the bidder has reason to rescind that either in substance or in amount.
Fair enough, it may be
We need
not
to-
real.
we need to-
Yeah.
We need to determine this up or down with the sole exception of on the driveway apron detail number 1,
Mhm.
which currently calls for no lip and an incline of 48 to 1 max. A 6-inch rise would be only 8 to 1. We need to make sure that that can be substituted for the driveway apron detail on which the bid was based.
At the same price.
It should be. a little bit. And other details could be asked after they start. There may or may not be a change order, probably wouldn't, but.
Because that's the gravamen of the email that we received, that Phil received from Jason Azar.
So he says 6 inches in there.
I'm sorry, that was unclear. What
Oh,
exchanged just now?
I was clarifying with Phil that Jason Azar's email does say 6 inches, so he wants the highest part of that apron to be 6 inches above the street. That would be the back side of it would be up 6 inches.
That would block the water from going up. My understanding.
Block the water from going towards the shark yourself.
They
would
would
keep it
discourage the water.
Inside the street.
And it's,
Any other discussion from the council?
Well, there was the motion to keep regardless of the outcome, to keep the bamboo and install a stop sign.
No, that would be a separate motion.
All right, we'll do that after the vote then. But
Keep the bamboo or remove the bamboo? You said. keep
I'm sorry,
the bamboo.
keep the portion of the statement about the removal of the bamboo. In other words, remove the bamboo.
Okay.
Any further discussion from the council?
Well, I did want to just ask Barb a clarifying question. So related to the bamboo, could you just describe again what the scope of work for the bamboo or this contract was?
It was simply to cut the section of bamboo that was impacting the sight lines. It is not designed to permanently remove the bamboo. There's not a bamboo barrier or anything to that effect that is part of this work.
And by cut, you mean cut to ground level or?
Yeah, cut to ground level, I believe.
In that triangle on the plan. On the left, up kind of where it's
Right.
there with the little hashtag, little squares.
I apologize. I stand corrected. I thought it was to remove it, but okay.
It's to, I think it basically says to cut to improve sight lines, but once again, bamboo comes back. We all know that, so there's not a bamboo barrier or anything like that. That's part of it.
No, that part I did know for sure.
I don't think you could dig it out anyway.
Anything further from the council?
May not be super important, but just a note, there is a law, I believe it's a state law where any corner you're supposed to, the homeowner is supposed to keep, any vegetation below 3 feet going back 25.
It's irrelevant
there.
to our, it may be the case, but it's irrelevant to our decision tonight.
Yeah, and I would just note, it's not just state law, it's actually in the town code.
Is there a comment on Louise's iPhone? Or no?
She doesn't have her hand up.
Okay,
Are we allowed to ask them to comment?
I will entertain 7 minutes of comments from residents.
So a couple questions. Does the town council know if what Phil read in that email is included in what you're about to approve or not?
It was not what was bid.
Okay, so if you approve as it's presented, it does not include that, so that would be a change order. Whether it's gonna increase the cost, lower the cost, we don't know. Whether they'll entertain it to change it, we don't know, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then also, Bill, did they address the angle? Because it seems to me if they're gonna go higher further in, then that makes the angle higher going down. So to me, again, for the Shikers not bottom out their car, I mean, looking at the moon when they're pulling out. It'd be nice to know that before, the town just spent $15,000. So those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Anything further? You want to call the question? All in favor of awarding this remaining element of the contract you approved at the last regular meeting to SFMS, signify by saying aye.
So we're back to the original motion, which is I for award and then A for not award. I'll vote aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Nay.
I'll go with nay.
All right. I'll ask the town manager to poll the council.
Okay, now, the next motion though that was related was to please.
Just let's get a poll on that vote, please.
We have to do a new motion.
Please try to get clarity.
Well, I'll make a new motion, sure. The new motion would be.
So, we've had a vote.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
You just want a roll call vote, Mayor Keller? Okay, Councilmember Eisenstadt,
Nay.
Councilmember Bennett,
Nay.
Councilmember Max,
Nay.
Councilmember Paskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schultz,
Nay.
The motion fails. Now, you worked on this from last July, when the first, at least when the first public notice was made, until November, and since then, plans were developed, an RFP issued, and we received bids. The bulk of that contract was approved 15 days ago, but we now have no action on the corner of Argyle and Kennewick. I think we owe it to all of the people who worked so hard on this, to come up with some resolution of that intersection.
Right, I agree.
Good. I'm not sure we should do it on the wing tonight. This was a special meeting called to resolve this one remaining issue from that particular bid. I'm open to suggestions from the council.
I'd like to make a motion. That would just be to have the bamboo in the right of way. About the location of the triangle that shows on this plan to have the bamboo removed. And if possible, to get a quote for what it would cost to put a bamboo barrier so that the bamboo doesn't continue to grow and encroach onto the road of Kenilworth. That would be my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I would support it if it goes the maximum it can all the way up to the right or up to the property line to get to the right of way. It's not risky that it's gonna be back in the road. The bamboo as it is, when there's a heavy snowfall, it all falls into the street. So.
I mean, I do think that's a good idea, but I don't think that's a complete solution.
No, I'm
So
not saying
I
it's-
just think we need to be clear that
Right.
it's not a complete solution.
Correct.
And question of clarification, I assume that means permanently removed, as in they're gonna have to do whatever it takes.
Barriers, right?
Barrier plus maybe either digging it out or treating periodically until the stuff finally goes away.
Correct.
And even barriers need maintenance.
Yeah.
Are we stuck with this motion until it's resolved?
I'm sorry?
Are we stuck with this particular motion until it's resolved, or can we discuss other things? Well, I think I think the concept still has a lot of merit. The only reason I voted nay was because I think we need to get some clarification from the engineer. We do enough road work on a regular basis that I think we can send it back to the engineer, get the questions answered, get a new drawing so that we can include it in a future bid package. That would be my recommendation.
I agree.
Based on what points?
Well, I think you need to have the drawing updated. We need to have the drawing full. The drawing needs to be updated to show the grade and elevation of Shaw Acres driveway, to show the 6-inch curb that we're talking about, that he was talking about here.
You
And
want to change the angle of the driveway location or not?
well, I'm gonna leave it up to him. I mean, Todd brought up a good point, and I thought of the same thing, which has to do with the breakover. Basically, as you're trying to go over a hump with a car, you want to make sure that it's not so ridiculous that you're bottoming a car out. So I would like to see the drawing updated to show elevation and any update to the actual driveway, so we understand how the water's going to flow. And consider what Stephen had said about, hey, maybe we make a different sweep on it at this point. But definitely to at least get the elevation, and definitely has got to have the elevation of the driveway done, so we see what's it's going to look like.
All right, we need plan and elevation showing the grade of the apron and the driveway.
In the detail, yeah.
And a cost.
And any broader idea of projections about where the water is going to flow, right? That's the key. I mean, the grade issues are important in that they help us answer that, right? If there can be better projections about that.
Given the rainstorm.
White line.
All right,
I could say, if I may, like the reason I voted aye is these kind of changes are very small potatoes for this kind of a project for an engineer to make the changes and award it for clarification after a bid, but long before it ever gets done. So I'm kind of disappointed that we're gonna delay and risk extra cost for that. I mean, it shouldn't have any justifiable change order. It's the same volume of materials. It's just dimensions or changes. You don't do change orders with increased cost for dimensions.
all right, unless there's a motion to reconsider, we will move to the motion to remove the bamboo and then take it that we can do that on a no bid basis in the interests of just getting it done quickly. Is that the sense of
Below a certain sum, right?
Right.
The bamboo removal would cost less than the bid requirement.
I was just
Pressure.
mentioning to Kayla, I'm not sure if Yendel is necessarily a good proxy for what we're talking about. But the cost of the bamboo barrier on that property and the removal is approximately equal to the intersection reconfiguration changes.
It's about.
So we would have to, we'd have to look at the lineal feet and try to see if those are comparable at all.
Okay.
All right, we're moving to a vote on the motion to remove the bamboo.
Permanently.
Oh,
I think we should be.
If you come up with a, there's a Nobel Peace Prize waiting for you. Okay, okay. All in favor?
I think we should add a cost limit or something to our motion. Or to our direction to the town manager. A ceiling limit.
What's the no bid threshold?
Well, you can waive whatever you want to do. I would guess that what we, unless you feel like you have to make a decision tonight, we could certainly ask Empire, which did the work on the former Yendel property, to basically come out and look at the area and come back with a price quotation.
And then you could send us an email to approve it, or you could.
You cannot vote over email. That's a violation. Yeah.
If it's below a certain amount, you can do it without our vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then amend.
Yeah, I will say that I just was looking it up. The bamboo barrier on the former Yendel property is $4,400. Once again, I don't know what the lineal feet is. You all have talked addressing just the Kenilworth side. Just as a reminder, there have been issues on the Argyle side as well that have caused site obstructions. So I don't know if you want to limit the work to the Kenilworth side, or you're also interested in addressing it on the Argyle side. There's not, because the town crews intervened about 2 years ago and cut it down. Yeah. I'm asking, I don't know I just want to be clear on what you'd like me to get pricing for.
Kind of.
The triangle that's shown indicated on the.
The
commercial-
same area,
Yep.
basically. Okay.
Sounded like that was, well, let me ask, is there anyone opposed? All right.
I would again suggest like going further than the triangle, but I don't know if I'm the only one.
Okay. But
You want to say remove all the bamboo on that is in the right of way on Kenilworth?
Yeah, very close to, maybe not all the way, but very close to it. So there's no risk of it leaning over and being back in the way again.
Okay.
Stephen, that's impossible.
Well, you can't rule it in.
Taller than the gravel lane on the road.
Yeah.
And we will not go beyond the property line.
I'm saying go further than the triangle, but short of the property line.
More towards the Argyle corner.
No, let's just
Front
keep this clean. We're talking about the crosshatched area
yes,
on sheet C 500, right?
that's what I had suggested. Yes,
All right.
as indicated.
Primary purpose is for the sightlines.
Unless somebody wants to move for reconsideration, I believe the vote was to approve removal of the bamboo. And I believe I'll take it as the sense of the council that we will return to our engineer and ask for a more detailed plan and elevation drawings. Is that correct?
And
Yes.
prices, if we're gonna take it out of this contract.
He doesn't price.
Doesn't price.
Estimates.
We'll have to rebid.
Okay,
Anything else from the council?
nope.
Charlie? Keep it brief, please.
1985, the New York Times had an article about Garrett called this the left bank of the suburbs. The first quote in the article was, "Are you for bamboo or against bamboo?" It's nice to know that bamboo is an issue in town after more than 40 years.
Is there anything further with respect to this action item? All right, very good. We will move to organizational matters then. Just move some of this stuff.
Did we get Barb everything she needs? Did you need a, okay, you don't need a price cap?
No, I think it just needs to come back to you all,
Okay.
basically.
You just come back at the next meeting.
It would depend on when I get pricing, but yeah, my initial thought is to try to get pricing and include it on the June 10th agenda.
Okay.
So, we usually shortly after each election have a meeting to divvy up council responsibilities and otherwise talk about where we might want to go. So we start with the liaisons to standing committees.
I have a request
Yeah,
pursuant to that, which is that if I'm gonna do, I would prefer to do parks and open space and resign from art. So I'm only doing one committee night too. Thank you.
okay, I finally found my notes.
Good.
Um, let's take it alphabetically. Arboretum Committee. Where do we currently have the liaison role there? What is your preference?
I'd be interested to remain in that role.
Okay,
Anyone wants to fight me for it? I've got some bamboo sticks.
I have one on my porch that Brendan took from the pool.
next is Archives, and Lisa's indicated her desire to give that up in view of the reestablishment of POSCO and her liaison role there. Is there anyone who would like to take on Archives?
I'll take it on again. I've done it before. I'll do it again.
Okay. Historic Preservation Committee is currently Stephen. Do you wish to retain that?
I'm fine to continue with it, but if anybody has a strong desire to take it over, I'm willing to step down because I've done it for so many years. I've been involved since 2011.
Yes,
Would you like to take that committee?
yes.
There are two ad hoc or mayoral committees. One is Land Use Advisory. And Stephen, you're currently liaison there. Do you wish to remain?
I'm fine to remain on that one.
And Lisa is the liaison to the recently reconstituted Parks and Open Spaces Committee.
Yeah, I'd like to remain on that committee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. It used to be that in addition to, well, it used to be that council had assigned areas of general responsibility. And there was really only one committee for which there had to be liaison. As the number of committees has grown, the practice of assigning council responsibility by broader subject areas has sort of diminished. I would like to just hear your thoughts about reinstituting some of those. And in my memorandum, I gave a notion of what some of those areas used to be.
I don't think we have a copy of that here though, right?
No.
Let's see. Some of the work we've had in the past includes stormwater, streets and roads, sidewalks, which was often collapsed into streets and roads, safety and traffic, snow, pool liaison, permits, and then various liaisons or contacts with the nursery school, elementary school, PTA, and other organizations, such as the Scouts. We had what might be known as a personnel or quasi-HR council member. Also assigned responsibilities for town hall, Penn Place, and again, those are contact roles with the Women's Club, Citizens Association, and then going back to subject areas, leaf removal, recycling, street sweeping. Now that's a lot, I admit, and a lot of them wouldn't involve much in terms of day-to-day or even month-to-month activity. But it's sometimes useful to have those. An example would be what we've just dealt with. I think it might have been useful for someone to look at the record of the council's consideration of the situation at the intersection we just discussed, and realize that there had been no real contact with the residents as a whole since July of last year. As it is, we had to pause the award of the contract to make sure that people were simply put on notice. Now, maybe someone would have noticed that, maybe not. But if we have someone who has responsibility for a broad subject area, they can remain a little more aware of what's going on and whether we need more citizen input, among other things.
And that person would report to Barb and the town council
Yeah, there are,
with questions or policy or.
exactly, they were never hard and fast.
Right.
Lines of authority and things of that nature.
Well, I would be happy to work at least on engineering stuff. I mean, I'm fine with doing streets and roads if nobody else wants it, but I've tried to keep a handle on the engineering stuff, and I would be happy to continue doing that.
I'd be happy to assist Bill and then hit where there's overlap on to architectural, but a lot of my background is in site planning too, so a lot of the civil engineering I have direct training on, so I can pitch in on these things as well.
I'm personally interested in stormwater to the degree that I don't have a lot of background in it, but I think it's an issue.
It's a hot one.
I know.
I mean, if you need assistance, I worked on that before. I worked on that under previous administration. We didn't get very far, but that's another story for another day.
It was a shame though, that was, a lot of things were solved and just weren't finished.
Right.
They were pretty simple solutions.
And obviously, there's a certain amount of overlap between these, but safety and traffic, I would view as a discrete area in the sense that there are things that can be done that don't involve infrastructure of streets, roads, and sidewalks.
Like signage.
Like signage, and my personal sense is that we can do a lot in terms of things like sight lines at corners by simply talking to residents. Last year, you had a traffic consultant at a fairly high cost make recommendations for that. Over 14 years ago, we did it by simply going around and talking to residents on corners where there were perceived sightline issues. So that and making sure that the signs that we do have now are functioning. I think I had one just the other day, I had the maintenance crew trim back foliage that it basically obscured the sign. Some of them are dirty and illegible from that standpoint. In other words, just sort of generalized safety and
I'd like to include, I would suggest that we included whoever that person is to also look at the street lights and make sure they're all working. And burned out.
Phil, you really do.
I do the streetlights, so I can go back and do, I haven't done a survey recently, but I will.
okay.
But I'd be willing to pitch in on that one, like the looking at the signs and the visibility, because I was the one that brought it up with the Waverly Corner that a lot of other historic landscapes like this one here, but it's a pretty key tool in the belt is that they'll go for that vegetation around the corners. It's a way to help things without a lot of hardscape.
Is there anyone who wants to be liaison to the pool?
I have been, and
Yeah, I know. Do you want to keep on?
I'm fine with that unless somebody else really wants it.
Permits, I guess. Do we have permits other than those that are the purview of the land use advisory committee?
We needed permits for the Yandell property, but I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about town issue.
We had to resolve the protocols for driveway aprons. I think Jerry Lee brought this up in a recent meeting, and then there are permits for that. There's also for, I guess, for fences, there is one too, right? And a handful of other things beyond buildings. We've also
Land
had
use
some-
committee doesn't look at those currently.
They look for fences. Well, actually, I don't think they look at fences. And they only
look
look
at
at
the
the driveway aprons only if the town office requests. And there was only, I think, one or two of those recently that we do. So we don't really have anybody that's looking at those, I don't think, from an engineering standpoint on our side. After what happened with that one, I'm not sure if I would be willing to be out there with my professional license, but so that's a little bit of a blind spot, I guess, for the town. So we don't have anybody really reviewing those. And I had some discussions with like the land use chair about wondering whether that should be a standing committee or if it should be, if it's a standing committee, if it should be split from kind of like more policy issues from the day-to-day permits about the rules that are on the book, like kind of separating the rules that are current versus future. But that's something I plan to take up just one-on-one with the mayor at some point when we get a chance.
Don't we have an architect who looks at
We
for
do.
Garrett Park,
Yeah.
right? So does that person have anything to do with those issues, fences and driveway aprons?
Again, he looks at them if Barb asks
Okay.
for it specifically. But anything that's a building permit required from the county, then the land use advisory committee automatically, well, that chair automatically looks at it. And they'll do a lot of consulting work for if a resident is thinking about doing something, they'll interpret the Garrett Park rules for them to give them a head start.
Is there any interest in reviving the notion of a contact liaison with various organizations in town?
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to mention that I have been the liaison for the nursery school, and I'm happy to continue that.
Okay,
I was gonna offer to do the schools as well, I mean, the elementary school or whatever the PTA. And I assume that will be mostly looking at some of the traffic issues, the Garrett Park issues related to the schools, which I guess, if I'm not mistaken, the park behind the school is that's a
County park.
So it doesn't include that, it includes, I suppose, the.
Nursery
We
school.
use the nursery school if Charlie does that, but other issues relating to. The flow of people in the morning and in the afternoon, I suppose would be well.
And probably things like when they hold big events, the international night is typically one. You gotta get ahead of because the might need to put up no temporary no parking signs to. Halloween parade, yep, another one.
Sure.
I'm happy to do the women's club and the citizens association as a liaison.
Great. Um. Given the hopefully imminent refurbishment of town hall, I don't think we can deal with that as the committee as a whole. Penn Place, anyone have an interest in just having an eye on developments at Penn Place? Okay, well, I'll just take that.
I know there's a new lease negotiation going on at Market that we haven't heard about.
How about we consider this more broadly as town services, leaf removal, recycling, street sweeping.
Snow removal.
Snow removal is in-house. These are all contracted out,
Okay,
so I would draw a distinction there.
okay.
Anyone interested in that area? I'll take it.
We need any sort of contact with county for county parks, or is that already taken care of enough by town office?
We have parks and open space.
I think it's pretty well taken care of.
Barb, is there any other?
Well, this doesn't have to be resolved tonight, but I wanted to raise that general notion because it's languished in recent years. So we'll do up a list based on this informal conversation and revisit it perhaps again later. We have other organizational issues.
The MML. Right,
Yes,
I would do that.
okay,
What is it?
MML,
Municipal.
Okay.
good.
Todd had expressed interest in, leading efforts related to the town charter. So, I mean, it's the charter and the ordinances and areas that we want to have a designated liaison for.
Well, we had a, council person with assigned responsibility for legal, which encompassed a lot of things. But you do want to continue consideration of charter changes.
Sure.
Right? Okay.
Updating the charter.
And then, I've been, had been liaison for the development at St. Angela's. I'm happy to continue on with paying attention to local development.
Okay.
And reports on that.
That's useful. Thank you. Any other thoughts along those general lines? Okay.
The White development plan, someone to follow that on behalf of the town.
Yeah, I can attempt to follow that.
Yeah.
I'll enlist John King to help me though.
You have an expectation of a long tenure on the council?
We'll see how it goes.
I think that's enough for now. As you've seen over the last two meetings, in terms of conduct of regular town council meetings, I like to strike a balance between the informality, which is typically characterized. So for example, this evening we allowed resident comments, even though they are not contemplated in special council. And I think if we can integrate the ability to have resident comments during the consideration of action items, it's useful in terms of giving residents ownership, and also just the pragmatic difficulty of trying to anticipate an item at 7:35 during resident presentations that might not in fact come up before the council until 2 hours later. But it needs to be administered carefully, and I do have a care for your time, and we'll try to do that. The other thing you've undoubtedly noticed is that I like to organize the consideration of formal action items in the context of what I've termed Robert's Rules light. I wouldn't know a superseding motion that walked in the door, but I do think that the basic rules of Roberts are useful in terms of just organizing our consideration of items in an efficient fashion. So with your permission, I will continue in that vein and welcome your thoughts if you find it in any way onerous or not productive.
Just to throw in that, I think that's very useful. I run meetings that way. Sometimes it's the only way to run meetings. But sometimes there may be differences about whether an amendment is friendly, whether the motion is consistent with the previous one. And maybe we could have flexibility about that so that we can all reach an informal understanding, which is more important, right? So, but I definitely agree that starting with the formal process is a good idea.
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it may be worth, I had it one time, but maybe there's a cheat sheet out there for some of the basic. You might even have one, Todd, otherwise I can try and dig one up, or maybe Barb's got one, basic Robert's Rules. So it's been a while. The book is about yay thick if you've got one. And certainly you don't want to get to that depth, but I'm hoping this basic stuff would be cool.
Which provides a useful segue. At the NML conference next month, one of the presentations is effective meetings, and those of us who are attending the conference might want to consider taking in that session. They would probably, yes, they would probably have that handout.
Wow, yeah. So
you need, well, maybe I probably have that too underneath, that much stuff. I went through the program for next month's conference and found a couple of sessions, more than a couple, a handful of sessions that would be useful. I intend to take them in, and for those of you who are going to the council, I'll give you this sheet. But that's one.
I'm planning to go, so I love the sheet.
Yeah, I'll hand this out. So we have 2 more minutes if we want to adhere to the schedule. And I'm serious about Well, I think it's fine. You have 32 minutes, but I don't intend to take. I would be delighted to hear anyone's views in terms of how we can work more efficiently. Because we should all value our own time as well as that of our residents. Not to beat a dead horse, but again, to use tonight's item as an example. You considered it last November. It's in the adopted minutes for last November. You can save yourself a lot of work if you simply stick to what you've done before and not continually revisiting it.
I personally heard a lot of neighbors' responses to the plan that I didn't have the advantage of at the time we took the vote.
I think we all did.
Well,
Agreed.
It's part of the premise of being flexible and making changes as you need to.
Right.
it may, I think it also speaks to the necessity of giving better notice. So you had those views in November and didn't have to do backing and filling 6 months.
I think we should have done better research. I don't think it was in the notes. I was at those meetings, but I do think we needed to do better research at that time. I would agree with you on that, definitely.
Any other thoughts?
I think a lot of it comes down to communications out to residents for me. I mean, there was nothing really for me that I saw that needed to be changed on this plan. It's a pretty simple and effective plan to fix that corner. But I think the issue is we need to get information out. Everything goes in the minutes. It gets discussed at these meetings. Usually there's 1 or 2 attendees, not more. All the information is out there, but nobody really sees it. So I wonder if they could find some more effective way to get key pieces of information out. Maybe it's a factor, maybe it's as simple as whoever is kind of assigned to a certain area to kind of just write a 3-sentence blurb in the Bugle to say, hey, this is on here, look at the minutes. This is being discussed, look at the minutes, X, Y, Z sort of thing. I'm not sure what else we can do, but it seems like sometimes we get this expectation, like if you don't go to everyone's house and sit at the kitchen table with them, then for the rest of their life, they'll say they never heard of it. So it's been like that on so many issues, I think, that we've dealt with here.
Well, that raises another subject area category that I did not have on my laundry list, which is communication. I think we could do some hard thinking, and there's a session at Ocean City on that too. So we should all attend that, but we're all here and we all know how frustrating it is to deal with residents who say, I don't pay attention to the listserv, I don't read the Bugle. And yet they aren't shy about objecting to something on the basis that they haven't heard of it.
And there's a lot of misinformation that goes on too, which is very frustrating.
Well,
There's a lot of
that's a subset.
yeah.
At least it's information. At the moment, my concern is more the people who just have no notion of what's going on. And yeah, and we should, not tonight necessarily, but think about other avenues of communication. I shudder to admit it, but I think we should go to that session and keep our ears open. The answer may be, part of the answer may be social media. If there's 40% of our residents who we really want to stay in touch with. Are you gonna?
Yeah, well, I think we should devote some time to coming up with some communication protocols, just some standard principles that we plan to follow for different types of actions. to include when we should notify particular neighbor residents who are adjacent to work that's being contemplated. To include how we might better leverage the listserv. But I think just doing that, just suddenly saying we're going to use the listserv for more communications than we currently have. I mean, I think some contemplation of principles around it would make some sense. I also think that we ought to, and I've suggested this in the past, have some emergency protocols and make sure that we know who to contact when we see an emergency or we're notified of emergency. I'm using light emergency situations in town.
Down trees and
You could
stuff.
use a liaison for that, actually. And you would be a good one.
Go to tornado, call it.
Something that's it.
Where I was going with this is, does anyone on the council wish to take communications as a subject area responsibility, understanding that we would treat it ultimately as a committee?
I'll volunteer for that.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Of which emergency protocols would be a sort of a subject.
So I'd like to return to the question, if there's no more communication, about what we can do to keep these meetings efficient, which I think was part of the original question.
I will volunteer for that.
And I would just say that there is something all of us can do, which is, just be succinct and feed the general conversation. And it sounds very self-evident, but we have gone on some tangents. I mean, when I started on this council a year ago, I think the first couple of meetings were like till 11:30. And I think they were scheduled till 9:30. And, and I think Chris, congratulations, you're gonna get us out on time with content and what we needed covered. And that's not to just disparage any individuals, but to say we can all do a better job of just trying to make sure what we say is germane and keeps the comment flowing like the current in the river that we need to get somewhere. So that would be wonderful. So thank you for your great start on that.
Good. Anything further?
Just maybe a tangent off of that is, I think one of the biggest challenges I've noticed in, I guess it's like 7 years on this council, is we were required to follow the Maryland State Open Meetings Act. So almost everything we have to discuss, we're not even supposed to discuss back and forth with email. And I think Chris, you really tried to nip that in the bud, which I applaud, but that makes it a real challenge for us. All the content has to happen pretty much during this meeting. We can all talk one-on-one, but we can't talk in a group of 3 even. So it makes it really, I think, difficult. Nothing can really be brought out until it's brought out here. So I'm not sure what else can be done. It was the first mayor I worked with had a habit of having a one-on-one discussion with everyone on the council individually, like a week or 2 before, kind of bringing up things that you may not have heard of and getting various views. I think that helped to shorten the meeting, but I'm not sure that would go back to solving it or what else we could do to solve it. I think that's a little bit of why the previous mayor had suggested maybe having 2 meetings in some months, is because there's just so much material to cover. So I mean, we could easily say have a short meeting and just not really pay attention to anything. We can get out of here really early, but I think to do anything justice, I think we have to find a method to do it. I mean, I think the example of tonight was a good one with the curve. There's really nothing wrong with that. But here we are going back and forth on it after 1 year and a half. It's just, that's kind of disappointing.
Well, there are sessions on the Public Information Act and open meetings.
We got a session for everything.
Am I convincing you to come? Well, I'm not sure it's anyone in this room, but some of us had served under a mayor who held meetings until 12:30 or 1 in the morning. And you only need to attend a couple of those to realize there's benefit in trying to do it better. Anything further? Now, this is the second meeting in this month. I think it was in part because I wanted to do a light touch organizational element, but primarily because we have the deadline to finish the awarding to do it. I will not hesitate to suggest a second meeting if either the volume or the time exigencies of anything require it. So I would ask you to continue to hold, I believe it's the fourth Monday of the month. Is that what you agreed back in October when you had your retreat? Just hold it on your calendar so we can do a negative option. And on those occasions, which I promise I will strive to make as few as possible, when we do need a second meeting, we don't have to spend a day and a half finding a date on which we can do it.
And those will also be on a Tuesday,
No, Monday.
Monday.
But let's not slide into that as a, let's not slide into that as a norm. Let's have those as when there's urgent business that needs to be addressed, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Because June's is when we're at the Ocean City, Maryland
Yeah.
Municipal League, June 24th, which is the fourth Monday, June.
okay, anything further? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that, or I'll make
I'll-
that motion.
I'll move it.
Second, good.